Good morning, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Sunday, January 19th, 2025, and it's going to be a warm one today. It's currently sort of low 20s, which is not too bad if you're in the shade, but apparently it's going to be mid 30s today, so early walk and about half the distance, although Neil is already struggling a little bit. You probably hear him puffing and panting in the background, but we'll be right, we'll get through it, we'll stick to the shade. On to the boxing, and the big fights just keep coming. I read this morning that it looks like, well, it did say earlier this week it could have been Teofimo Lopez and Ryan Garcia, but Ryan Garcia, of course, is now looking to sign the fight Pitbull Cruz and then Devin Haney in the rematch. So Teofimo Lopez has looked elsewhere, and it looks like maybe we could get another really cracking fight. It's a unification fight with Richardson Hitchins, who's obviously just coming off that win over Liam Paro. So that is being discussed as being, well, they're saying early 2025. So that could, what is early, up to about March, April, I suppose. So yeah, Lopez and Hitchins. Now the thing is, apparently they're also saying that if Teofimo Lopez beats Richardson Hitchins for the, what would it be, the WBO and IBF belts, that he would then fight Jaron Boots Ennis later in the year on a Riyadh card, probably being the Haney Garcia 2. Well, the rematch card in Riyadh. So I think that was going to be October from memory. So wow, plenty of things to look forward to there. So that's a fascinating fight if it does happen. Teofimo Lopez and Richardson Hitchins. Don't just put the glasses down and say it's going to be a Lopez win, because Hitchins has showed that he's not a bad fighter. Now I'm still picking Lopez, but not easily. I think it's a good matchup, not a bad matchup. And if he does beat Hitchins and moves up to 147, that's a fascinating fight with Boots Ennis, isn't it? No word on who Boots Ennis will fight. He's going to do or have a tune-up before the fight, if they do fight later in the year, of course, as well. So yeah, it's been the week for it, hasn't it? Some big fights sort of being announced or mooted or cards or whatever it might be. So plenty to look forward to there. One thing not to look forward to is if you're a Sebastian Fundora fan, because I did say yesterday that the fight with Errol Spence was off. Now, I didn't actually state the reasons, by the way, I just said it was off. Apparently the reasons are, and they make perfectly good sense. One is that Errol Spence hasn't fought for 18 months. The other is he's coming off a loss. Number three was he's not ranked with the WBO, of course, because he's not he hasn't fought for so long and not at the weight. And that was the other, I think, the fourth reason. Yeah, he's hasn't fought ever at 154. So they're the four reasons why the fight wasn't sanctioned, which does make a lot of sense. The question I've got is why has it taken 10 months for the WBO to make the reasons clear to Sebastian Fundora? We all remember back in March of 2024, late March, when Sebastian Fundora upset Tim Tszyu. Well, did he upset him? To Aussie fight fans, he upset Tim Tszyu. Maybe to the world boxing fans, wasn't such a surprise. But either way, he was in the ring. Errol Spence jumped in the ring, and it was stated then that that would be next. Possibly next, but I think we all got the picture. When they get a fighter up in the ring straight after someone's won, normally the fight happens next. And here we are 10 months later, and now the WBO says, no, we're not going to sanction that one. 10 months later after that fight. And it was first talked about, I think it was going to be, was it September, October, last year. Then it was going to be the start of this year. I think it was going to be January or February or whatever it was. And now the WBO have finally said, no, we're not going to sanction that fight because of these stipulations. Hasn't fought at 154, not ranked at 154, hasn't fought for 18 months, and he's coming off a loss. It's taken him 10 months to realise that. And 10 months for Sebastian Fundora's management to get those answers. So it's got me buggered. And you think that he gave up that fight with Crawford that was apparently on the table, And now it looks like the possible opponents, I think they talked about Joey Spencer. Yes, from Errol Spence, Terence Crawford to Joey Spencer. But apparently that fight's not going to happen. It looks like it might be Xander Zayas, Josh Kelly, and who was the other one? There was someone else thrown in there as well. Real household names. So we've gone from winning the WBO, WBC belts in a career best win over Tim Tszyu, gutsy win. We've all acknowledged that. Errol Crawford has talked about. Errol Spence has talked about. Terence Crawford has spoken about. And here we are 10 months later with no opponent, and Joey Spencer, Xander Zayas, and Josh Kelly as the leading contenders for a shot at the belt. That's where he's gone to. Anyway, enough of that. I just struggle to get my head around with all those big fights at 154, and the champion with 2 of the belts is sitting out in the cold, looking through the window like, can I please come in and can I play with the rest of the 154s? Mind-boggling. Anyway. All right, so yes, I did also talk about the possible 5x5 tournament or event, I should say, not a tournament, a 5x5 event between Matchroom and Golden Boy. And it sort of got me thinking about what fights would be on that card. Now, there's some really good fights that could be on there, but won't be because of other commitments. And the ones I'm talking about, probably Ryan Garcia is probably one. Now, does Richardson Hitchins, he's with Matchroom, does he get taken off the list as well? Who else was there? Someone in there. Guys like Conor Benn and were taken off. Not so sure they would have been on there anyway. But the surprising thing is that it was actually harder than I thought it would be, because surprisingly, Matchroom has a very, very solid stable, very solid stable. But Golden Boy is just a little bit lean at the moment, especially if you take out Ryan Garcia. Now, he's probably the main fighter on that card. In that stable is Ryan Garcia, probably the biggest star. Arguable, I know, but I would think so. So with him having 2 fights sort of lined up this year, Pitbull and then Devin Haney, and then a possible rematch with Haney in 2026, that he would have to probably be taken off the table, unless, of course, Devin Haney suddenly becomes an honorary member of Matchroom. So, but for argument's sake, now I've taken him off the list. I've taken off Conor Benn as well. He might have featured, but of course he's got maybe 2 fights with Eubank Jr. lined up. So I've sort of taken him off. So I've had a bit of a look at it and gone for 5 that I think would be good possible fights. Now, even Richardson Hitchins I actually had on the list. I'm going to replace him and I'll let him know who within a sec. But some really good, fascinating fights, but not as solid as it could have been. I mean, you talk about guys like maybe a Ryan Garcia versus a Conor Benn. That definitely would have been one I would have put on there. That would have been a very, very interesting spite. You imagine the build up to that. It'd be so spiteful, sort of, and there'd be fireworks, and who knows what would happen. So that was one fight that I did have that I took off the table for starters. So look, as I said before though, a little bit shallow in the Golden Boy end, so just forgive me the first couple of fights, but I'm doing the best I can. These are the possible fights. So I think I did have Richardson Hitchins from Matchroom up against Arnold Barboza Jr. from Golden Boy. Now with Hitchins looking like it might be Lopez, and if he does win that, maybe he'll move up or whatever, I'm not quite sure. But either way, I've taken him off the table for now. So I've inserted our man George Kambosos in there, and I know there'll be a lot of people rolling their eyes, but I'm telling you, there's probably not a lot at 140 that we could probably throw in there that could probably draw a lot of eyeballs on the event. There's probably guys like Liam Paro and a few of the others that may be a lot more deserving of George Kambosos to be on the card, but this is George Kambosos. He brings it. If they do these events, they would want some flair and some pizzazz, I suppose you'd call it. Someone that would sell the event and really talk things up. And Liam Paro, while a very, very good fighter, is probably not that guy. And there's a few of the others from Matchroom I probably could have thrown in there. But I just think, put George Kambosos on that card. As I said, Richardson Hitchins was the first choice against Barboza, but yeah, with him sort of out of the equation, looking like being out of the equation, we'll put George Kambosos in there, who I said would be very entertaining. So that's the first one, Kambosos, Barboza Jr. The next one, again, just bear with me on this one. There's not a lot around. Actually, I would have liked to have gotten fights for the likes of Sky Nicholson, a female fight, but there's nothing. Golden Boy don't have any featherweights at all, or females. I would have liked to have got Gabriel Fundora on there as well, but couldn't get a female fight on. They just didn't match up. So that's the first thing I'll say. All right, number 2, I had Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia. Now, before you blurt out, well, hang on, Munguia. Well, both of these guys coming off losses, especially Munguia with that knockout loss. I think he's going to fight Saras very, very soon. It might be in the next month or two. So I think he'll avenge the loss. Berlanga will probably have a fight in between. And I actually still think Berlanga, Jaime Munguia would be a very, very good fight as well. So I'll put that on there. They're sort of the two, we'll call them sort of the warm-up prelim sort of fights, the appetizers for the 3 main fights. And those 3 fights are, I'm not quite sure the order. I'll leave it up to you to decide the order. I'll sort of go through what I think anyway. I've got Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda. That's probably the first one. So Shakur Stevenson from Matchroom, William Zepeda from Golden Boy. I think that's a ripper fight. I think that Zepeda has every chance to beat Shakur Stevenson. I think with his hardness and his relentlessness and his power, Shakur Stevenson does not like to engage. He likes to fight at his own pace from a distance. I just don't think he's going to get that opportunity against William Zepeda. Now, look, it's quite possible that Shakur Stevenson does rise to the occasion and outboxes Zepeda and looks great, but I've just got a feeling that at lightweight, big, strong, solid, hard punching, busy fighter like Zepeda could upset Shakur Stevenson. But I think it would be a very, very good fight. And unlike a lot of snore fests that Shakur Stevenson seems to find himself in, I don't think we're going to get that with this one. I think William Zepeda would make him fight for 12 rounds, and we'd see what Shakur Stevenson's got. He would have to dig deep, I have no doubt, and whether he can do it or not, well, I suppose we would find out on the night. Then the 2 big ones. Again, not quite sure the main event status, but I'll try anyway. I've got Jai Pataya and Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez as the co-main. And again, it's arguable, could easily be the main, but I've gone for Opataya and Ramirez for all the belts. No, sorry, it wouldn't be for the WBC belt, would it? So it'd be for the WBA, WBO, IBF cruiserweight titles, and what a fight that would be. I still think Jai Pataya wins the fight. I'm not going to say comfortably, but I think clearly, I think on the scorecards he would win by a wider-ish margin, but it would be a little bit like the Breeders' fight where it would be super tough and hard, and Ramirez would just not stop coming. He wouldn't stop punching, putting the pressure on Jai, and Jai would have to dig deep just like he's done a couple of times against Breeders, but I think he would get the job done in a tough fight, and then maybe unify all the belts. Depends on who's got it, of course. The WBC belt just seems to be in limbo at the moment, doesn't it? Just excuse me there as I go through the bushes here. Thanks, Neil. Ow. Not just bushes, the prickly bushes. All right. But yeah, that would be a really good fight. And yeah, as I said, with that WBC belt, remains to be seen whether that sort of comes in the equation as well. But either way, that would be sort of the co-main. And then I've got the main event. It would be Jaron Boots Ennis from Matchroom up against Virgil Ortiz Jr. From Golden Boy. Now, again, those fights could probably be switched, but either way, it doesn't really matter, does it? I think that would be a brilliant fight. I think, look, I'm probably going to have to go with Ennis in this fight. Look, we haven't seen much of him. He did struggle in his last fight too, remember? But I've just got a feeling his boxing skills might just offset Ortiz. Look, it wouldn't surprise me, Ortiz being the bigger guy, would maybe steamroll over the top of Ennis, but I'm just sort of going by gut feel in this one. I just think Boots Ennis, if he carries the weight okay at 154, could beat Virgil Ortiz. But anyway, maybe we'll find out. So there's the fight. So we've got Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz, we've got Opataya and Zerdo Ramirez. We've got Shakur Stevenson, William Cepeda, Edgar Belunga, Jaime Munguia, and George Kambosos and Arnold Barboza Jr. But have a look at it for yourself. It's not that easy, only because, look, they've both got some, obviously, like some star power, but the fact that we've had to wipe a few off the starting grid. Now, maybe, as I said, Devin Haney, he could hook up with Matchroom. He's bloody drawing blood there too. He could hook back up with Eddie Hearn, and he could join sort of Matchroom, and we could have Haney and Garcia as that one of those fights as well, and just take off maybe the Kambosos Barboza fight or one of those ones. But have a look at it. It's an interesting thing to do. And as I said before, would have loved to have got Sky Nicholson on there. Would have loved to have got Gabriel Fundora on there. Would have loved to have got Jesse Bam Rodriguez on there. But it's just really hard trying to get an appropriate opponent from the other side. There are fighters that from the opposing party that you could probably throw in, but they just wouldn't be competitive fights. And I think there was only one super flyweight that could have fought Jesse Rodriguez, and I'd never heard of the guy, so we would have to put a line through him. But what do you think? Have a look at it yourself. It is an interesting concept to do. But again, you got to sort of keep in with their availability, and I'm not sure they're looking obviously probably with the second half of 2025. But you know, I think Ryan Garcia, Connor Ben would have been a good one. Maybe look, even Ryan Garcia, George Kambosos would have probably been a good one. I don't know. You can throw a lot of things around in there, but have a crack at it anyway. But it's a little bit of fun. But guys, look, I think that is it for today. Tell me your thoughts down below. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you'll come up with better matchups and different results to what I've got, but that's the fun of it. That's why we talk about it. But that's going to do for this beautiful Sunday. We're just approaching the home stretch now. I think Neil's glad about that. He's looking for some shade at the moment. I'm sure he'll spend the day under the fan. So guys, enjoy your Sunday, and we will catch you tomorrow.